he led me to believe that he would work on things by saying, "Oh, Meri, when we move to Flagstaff, this will be a good time to have a new beginning for us."
Welcome to Glogosops USA, where every story feels real and every silence hides a truth. What if everything we believed about sister wives was a carefully designed illusion? What if the calm we mistook for peace was actually silence forged? In fear, a silence crafted by manipulation, enforced by shame, and paid for by the women who gave up their voices. And what if the one wife they tried hardest to erase is now the one speaking loudest? This story doesn't begin with a press release or a headline. It begins in the dark at 2:14 a.m., when the internet stirred awake, not with a scream, but with a whisper. A shaky, grainy, 2-minute video uploaded anonymously to a hidden Reddit thread. It wasn't promoted, it wasn't pushed. But within hours, it became a firestorm. The footage was poor, blurry, muffled, unremarkable at first. It's just a hallway, the echo of footsteps, and the rustling of paper. But then came the voices. First, a woman's voice, tight, panicked, unmistakably Robyn. "She's planning something," she whispered, her breath caught, trembling. "Meri's been talking to people who support her leaving. She goes public with the truth. You won't survive this. Cody's done. We're finished." Then silence, followed by another voice, lower, sharper, barely contained. "Cody, she doesn't have the guts. She's been threatening this for years. We'll bury her." That moment landed like a punch to the gut for longtime fans. Wasn't just angry words, it was strategy, war planning, a glimpse into what goes on when the cameras stop rolling. And the scariest part? It wasn't even surprising. The chaos, the manipulation, the quiet destruction of anyone who stepped out of line, it all fit the pattern. For years, Meri had stayed silent. While scenes were cut, while her words were twisted, while her pain was minimized for the sake of the show's image, she stayed quiet, but not anymore. The video spread like wildfire. Fans enhanced the audio, filtered the voices, timestamped every syllable. Reddit exploded with breakdowns and theories. TikTok lit up with dramatic reenactments and frame-by-frame analysis. The moderators confirmed the source, and by then, it was far too late. Cody's words, "We'll bury her," echoed across platforms like a threat exposed. For the first time, the world saw what Meri had known all along. Her silence wasn't a choice, it was a sentence. While the internet boiled over with speculation, Meri sat in silence, far from Flagstaff, in a snowy town blanketed by stillness. She cradled a steaming mug in her hands and stared out her window. She wasn't mic'd up. No glam team, no film crew. Just her and her thoughts and her phone buzzing like a distant alarm. Everyone wanted a comment. Former castmates, podcast producers, journalists, even therapists she hadn't spoken to in years. But Meri didn't move. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time, and she was ready. But she hadn't flinched when the producers re-edited her scenes. She hadn't fought back when her story was reduced to background noise. But what they didn't know was that behind closed doors, Meri had been documenting everything, quietly, intentionally. Every night, after the world fell silent, she turned on her own camera. No lights, no filters, no retakes. It's just her voice, and the story they refused to let her tell. It wasn't vengeance, it was preservation. A record of the truth, her truth. In one video, her eyes are rimmed with exhaustion, her voice raw with restraint. "They think I'll stay," she says. "They think I'll protect the brand, the image, the man. But I won't. Not anymore. I won't carry their silence, and I won't carry their shame." She stares directly into the lens. "You can't leave Robyn without being labeled unstable. But I'm leaving. I will speak the truth." That's the moment everything shifted. Meri wasn't broken. She was done being broken. She was no longer afraid. She wasn't running. She was standing tall with truth in her hands and nothing left to lose. People listened. As her voice echoed across social media, something even darker started to surface proof. First came a leaked email from TLC's internal PR team, bland in tone but chilling in intent. Concerned about Meri's emotional well-being, Robyn Brown has contacted several podcast producers and mental health professionals with whom Meri has communicated. On the surface, it looked like care. But under scrutiny, it read like interference, subtle, invasive, controlling. Robyn hadn't just distanced Meri from the spotlight. She had tried to sever her from support. Then came the cease and desist. Letter, digital, cold, and signed by Robyn herself. It was sent to a small podcast that had quietly offered Meri a safe space to speak. The letter threatened legal action if they moved forward with the interview. Robyn wasn't just suppressing Meri's voice on TV, she was reaching into the independent platforms too, silencing her everywhere she turned. But Meri had already passed the point of no return. She no longer needed anyone's permission. She had her own platform now. Her videos, raw, unedited, powerful, gained traction quickly. Women saw themselves in her, survivors of emotional manipulation. Voices who had been sidelined for the sake of keeping the peace. And every time Meri uploaded another video, her following grew, not just in numbers, in loyalty. Then came the next bombshell, a leak from within Cody's camp. Someone close to him revealed that he was seeking legal counsel to block Meri from speaking publicly. He was scared not of lies, but of truth. Not of defamation, but of revelation. He knew Meri wasn't bluffing this time, and the more he panicked, the more the public believed her. Meanwhile, Robyn's carefully managed image began to unravel. Once seen as the sweet, misunderstood wife, she now looked like a strategist, a gatekeeper, an enforcer. The woman who once cried over unity was now using legal threats to ensure silence. Fans turned against her fast. If Robyn was really concerned, one commenter wrote, "Why is she blocking Meri from getting help?" From being heard, Meri didn't have to say much. Her silence was louder now than ever before, but when she did speak, the world stopped to listen. In another video, she sits on a worn couch, wrapped in a blanket, the glow of a lamp behind her. "I spent years thinking I was protecting my family by staying silent. But silence isn't protection. It's a cage." She looks down for a moment, then back at the camera. "They told me if I spoke up, I'd be hurting the brand. But you know what hurts? Pretending. Pretending I wasn't in pain. Pretending the love was equal. Pretending that this was my choice." No one could pretend anymore. The sister wives' facade was crumbling, and in its place stood a raw, powerful, undeniable story. The truth told not through producers or staged to family meetings, but through a woman finally taking control of her narrative. The final video, in the series at least for now, ends with Meri walking outside into the snow. She doesn't say much. She doesn't have to. She simply holds up a notebook, thick, worn, filled with pages, and says, "Every lie has a receipt. I kept them all." That was the final nail in the illusion.
It feels like everything's just sort of falling apart, and I'm trying so hard to remain hopeful. It feels like I'm in an alternate.
It was supposed to be a routine legal form, but what it really said was stay quiet or else. The platform had been accused of trying to provoke Meri into exposing content that could damage Robyn and Cody's carefully preserved image. The legal team framed it as concern, as protection. But the fans? They saw it for what it was, censorship dressed in corporate language. Yet the real fracture didn't come from a cease and desist or a TLC memo. It came quietly, almost hauntingly. An Instagram story in black and white, no filter, no caption. Just Meri's hand clutching a faded lease to her old Las Vegas home. It might have gone unnoticed. Another throwback, a vague memory. But in the top right corner, there was something chilling. A yellow sticky note. 5 words. Faded ink. Familiar handwriting. Don't tell anyone yet. Let's deal with this internally. It wasn't spoken, it was written. But it was Robyn's voice, no longer whispered behind closed doors, but left behind like evidence at a crime scene. This wasn't just about property. This was about power, about manipulation, about control, disguised as sisterhood. And suddenly, the fans weren't just suspicious, they were furious. What they had suspected for years was no longer speculative. It was systematic. This wasn't one woman's paranoia. This was proof that the silence had been organized, normalized, weaponized. Then Cody lost control, and it only took 90 seconds. In a leaked production clip, his voice wasn't calculated or calm, it was shattered, furious, nearly incoherent. The camera picked up mid-rant, but every word slammed like a door being broken down. She lacks gratitude, so wants to burn everything I gave her, for what? A story? A victim complex? The room fell dead silent. Not out of shock, but out of discomfort. A producer tried to step in to de-escalate. Cody didn't stop. Security was called. And just like that, the man who had built the show's image, who had rebranded dysfunction as polygamy, was escorted off the set. No official announcement followed. No press conference. Just a leak, an internal HR memo quietly passed around, screenshotted and posted online. Due to confrontation with production personnel and non-compliance with filming requirements, Cody Brown will be temporarily removed from Sister Wives production for a duration of 18 days. It sounded small, but it wasn't. It was a landslide. For the first time, the show was moving forward without him and Robyn. She was gutted. Not because Cody had gone too far, he'd done that 100 times. But because this time, the consequences had arrived. Robyn had always operated from behind the scenes. Cody was her shield, her translator, her amplifier. He absorbed the heat so she could stay clean. But now, he was gone. And without his body in front of the camera, Robyn's shadow started to stretch. Producers, sensing the shift, began digging. Old footage, rejected scenes, muted arguments in the background, passive-aggressive pauses. They saw it now. What used to look like innocent edits now felt like deliberate erasure. Cody may have imploded on set, but it was Robyn's mask that was quietly falling apart. Then came the photo again. It's a sticky note. Posted once more, but now circulating with fury across Reddit, TikTok, and X. The message wasn't loud, it was surgical. Robyn hadn't asked Meri to stay silent. She had instructed her. And suddenly, what once felt like sisterly concern, now read like managerial control. This wasn't about supporting each other. It was about keeping Meri quiet until the narrative could be rewritten. That lease wasn't just paperwork. It was a contract to disappear. And Meri had followed it for a while, but no more. At midnight, with no promotion and no fanfare, a new YouTube video appeared on a completely unknown channel. Truth from Liz's porch. No graphics, no intro, just a grainy thumbnail and one title: The Uncensored Journal of Meri, Before They Rewrite Me. It was 9 minutes of silence-breaking clarity. No soundtrack, toe makeup. Just Meri, wrapped in a gray sweater, sitting on a worn wooden swing, snow in her hair, a storm in her voice. "I gave it my all," she said, softly. "When I wanted to scream, I stayed quiet. When I was gaslit, I stayed loyal. When they brought me betrayal edited, staged, and sold as reality, I accepted it." She paused for what felt like forever, her breath visible in the cold. "But this is my voice. And I'm the only one who gets to shape it now." She didn't name names. She didn't need to. This wasn't vengeance. It was reclamation. She spoke of manipulation disguised as support, of grief used against her, of being told when to speak, what to say, and who she was allowed to be. It was calm, it was devastating, it was honest. By sunrise, the video had over 3.2 million views, not just from fans but from survivors. Women who had swallowed their voices for the sake of family, peace, religion, men. And now they were hearing their own story in Meri's. Then, without warning, the final blow came not from Meri, from family. Robyn's estranged half-sister Belle appeared on TikTok. No music, no filter, no dramatics. Just a steady look into the camera and a single line. If you want to see the real Robyn, take a seat. What followed was a 45-minute monologue. That didn't rage, it dissected cold, lethally specific. Belle didn't throw accusations. She recounted a history. She described Robyn as someone who had learned very young that tears made people bend, that guilt could be weaponized, that religion could be molded, that Cody needed a woman who could sob while he twisted the knife, and Robyn became that woman. She spoke of staged sympathy, camera-ready vulnerability, strategies that weren't just emotional, they were rehearsed. And the video, it exploded. Over 10 million views in 24 hours. Robyn's image, once misunderstood and devoted, was in freefall. The media, once cautious, now pounced. Robyn responded through a publicist. It's a short, cold statement. The exploitation of family concerns for public spectacle breaks my heart. But there was no heart in it. No apology. No denial. Just sterile words and a cracked mirror. For fans, this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about control exposed. It was about truth refused. It was about a woman silenced for too long, finally taking her story back before anyone else could claim it. Welcome back to Glogoseps USA, your #1 destination for untold truths. Behind-the-scenes drama and the emotional wreckage the cameras didn't dare to show. If you've ever sat back and thought, wait, this isn't just reality TV, this is a storm brewing beneath a facade, then you, my friend, are exactly where you need to be. What we're about to uncover isn't just a story, it's a reckoning, and it begins with the silence that finally shattered. It was never supposed to be this way. For years, fans watched as Meri Brown smiled through pain, nodded through isolation, and became the emotional punching bag of a man who once promised her eternity. But when the camera cuts away and the season finale fades to black, there's a truth that doesn't go away. And finally, Meri decided she wouldn't either. The confirmation didn't come with fireworks, it came with a legal document. Cody Brown, the patriarch, who once declared himself the head of the family, had filed a lawsuit, 57 pages of allegations, veiled insults, and one desperate attempt to silence the only wife who still knew how to hold a secret. He called it a breach of privacy, claimed it damaged the Brown family brand, demanded $230,000 in damages, and a gag order that would effectively mute Meri for good. But the paper, dressed in legal jargon, read more like an angry diary entry than a formal complaint. It wasn't justice, it was panic. But Meri, she didn't panic. She didn't rush to court with a flashy legal team. She didn't go on a morning talk show, sobbing under a spotlight. She turned on her camera. No lighting crew, no editing. It's just her. A shadow of a smile and the exhaustion of someone who had been quiet for too long. "It's a brand now, isn't it?" she said, laughing without joy. "I thought it was a family." And then she held up a piece of paper, crumpled, smudged, but undeniable. A draft of a non-disclosure agreement, one, she claimed, came not from TLC, not from any lawyer, but from Robyn. Dated 2020. Meri said it followed a bitter fight about money. Christine had refused to sign it, so had Janelle, okay? And the document was never legally executed. "You're embarrassed by my story now," Meri whispered, holding back the thunder that trembled just beneath her calm. "But you don't get to control it. You let them call me broken, cold, inactive. You let Robyn define my silence as instability, but I'm not unstable, I'm free." The court didn't take long. The injunction Cody begged for was denied. Experts called the lawsuit a joke, weak, performative, a guaranteed public relations disaster. But the damage Cody feared, it had already begun, because the second Meri spoke creole, the silence broke. And the empire Cody spent years building on image and illusion began to crumble. But this wasn't just Meri's moment. A signal, a shift, a transfer of power no press release could stop. 1 week TLC teased season 19 with soft lighting and hopeful narration. Cody and Robyn were still at the center. Redemption arcs, second chances, the same old lies. And then, without warning, the promos vanished, replaced, and what rose in there, placed with something no one expected. Now the camera opened not on Robyn's carefully curated tears, but on Meri walking alone through the echoing emptiness of her Flagstaff rental, each step slow, deliberate like a woman retracing her own ghost. Christine stood in her kitchen, her stare piercing the off-screen producer like a blade. "For too long, none of us spoke," she said, and we were harmed by that silence. Janelle's voice followed. Not angry, just broken. "We thought protecting the family meant swallowing the truth. But all it did was erase us. The network hadn't just turned the page. It lit the old one on fire. Cody and Robyn, once the stars of the franchise, were nowhere to be seen. Press kits rolled out without their names. Marketing dropped them with eerie precision. Even the theme music changed. Gone was the upbeat strum of false joy. In its place was something mournful, hollow, a dirge for a dynasty collapsing from within. Then the leak hit, a scene never meant to air. A conversation caught through a paper-thin wall, raw and unfiltered. Robyn's voice shaky, panicked. "You're not getting it. If Meri tells the truth," she whispered, "the entire narrative shifts. TLC becomes an accomplice." And on the other side of that wall, silence, because she wasn't wrong. The network had protected Cody and Robyn for years, editing out their flaws, dimming the spotlight on their betrayal. But now the spell had broken, and the women who were once background noise were stepping forward stronger, louder, and no longer asking for permission. It wasn't just a shift in airtime, it was a revolution, a mutiny within the machine. And it all came to a head during the tello. By the time the cameras rolled for the special, fans weren't watching for gossip. They were watching for a reckoning. And SukiKrishnaMeasured.com, but Razor Sharp delivered it. She turned to Robyn and asked the question that echoed from every corner of the internet. "Why won't you watch past clips? Why do you always look away?" Robyn, ever the actress, stammered. "They're too painful," she said, her eyes glassy, too destructive. But the camera didn't blink, didn't cut to a soft moment or shift focus. It stayed on her still, unrelenting as footage rolled in the background. Cody dismissing Meri, Cody gaslighting Janelle, Cody weaponizing Christine's silence. And as those moments played, Robyn smiled. Not big, not proud, just enough. And in that single frame, the mask slipped. Janelle didn't let it pass. Her voice, sharp and clean, sliced through the air. "You can't even mention Robyn without Cody shutting down. She's his sacred cow, untouchable. That's the truth." No one flinched. No one objected, because the truth had stopped being controversial. It had become unavoidable. The room, once filled with forced family smiles and passive nods, now held only raw honesty. This wasn't a family anymore. It was a battlefield littered with broken vows and fading illusions. Christine, when asked about Meri's so-called unraveling, didn't hesitate. Her story